All right, ladies and gents. Well, we have got shock news out today. Goodness me. We just had a shocking announcement from General Rowley Walker. And yeah, I got to tell you what he's been saying. The Land Warfare Conference, which I've been following for the last 2 days, has now finished the closing remarks and everything that's happened. And I mean, it's basically like a prediction. It's telling you exactly what they're doing as we go into the future. And it's amazing that back in 2020, I said the key year is 2027. And that's basically what they've now confirmed. They've said the key year is going to be 2027 for all of this conflict. And they're not even hiding it anymore. This is the surprising thing. It's basically out there. They've put it all out there with statements, with a plan, with troop numbers and equipment and everything else. And they've got the whole plan. They're telling us, they're calling it a fight against the axis of evil. They're comparing it to Nazi Germany. They're saying it's Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. And this is who we're going to fight in 2027. Yes, that is exactly what's... Let's get onto the shared screen here. In fact, one other thing. Some weeks go by and it's just crickets. There's nothing in the news, nothing's going on, and it's a struggle. And I might only make a couple of videos a week because there's just nothing to talk about. And then there's other weeks, like the last 2 or 3 weeks, where there's so much going on that I can't even keep up with everything. And that is definitely this week. So let's go and have a look. And you probably noticed then that every news story has looked like this today. Every single one. Britain must be able to confront China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. What's the next story? Oh, and by the way, if you notice one thing about all of these, they all have British Army action shots. So you'll notice every article has got several of these action shots. Okay, what does the FT say? UK has 3 years to prepare for war. Again, another Army action shot. It's all the same headline. UK chief says UK must double its lethality or be prepared for war in 2027. Again, Army action shot. Britain must be ready for war in just 3 years, new Army chief warns. Again, same thing. UK must be ready for war in 3 years. Again, another story. This is the same story. Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, the axis of upheaval. The quote was actually the axis of evil, but okay, we'll go with upheaval here. And then the Independent, threat of multiple wars means Britain must be ready to fight in 3 years. So they're talking about multiple wars here. And it's quite interesting when you listen to the conference where they talked about all the different wars and all the different fronts that are going to be fought. Quite worrying, I would say. Quite worrying indeed. And I know I've talked a lot about this, and I've said that even though I'm very fit and strong and all this sort of stuff, and did 10 years in the army and still in good shape now, there's no way I'm going to be getting involved in this conflict, as it were. Absolutely no way. And I've said if you don't want to be getting conscripted or whatever else is going to happen, because people have keep saying in the comments, you know what, Neil, I won't get conscripted, I'm over 40. Yeah, so am I. And guess what, I still think that conscription will happen, because they just changed the rules. You see, it doesn't really matter about the age. You look, some countries at the minute it's 55 years old, and it's not just men, that they're even talking about women. So that's why I keep talking about you need to have alternative options. I've talked about this a lot, and I mentioned things like different visas and how you do your work. Most of my work is online now, and that's what the new course that I made, I talked about. One of the aspects of that is how to actually make money online, so you can do it from anywhere in the world. You've got to start thinking now about what you're going to do, or what you're going to do for your children, because this is all coming. So let's have a quick look at this. Which article did I want to show you? Oh yeah, this was the other thing I wanted you to be aware of. This isn't been announced, but NATO has just put 500,000 troops on high alert. So you haven't seen this anywhere in the media, but an alert came up for me because I have all these keywords, And this came up, but I haven't found it anywhere in the media. Here's the BBC article on it. The UK must be ready to fight war in 3 years, says the army head. And again, it's always the same. It's the same image and title because it's coming from the same place. So let's have a look at what they are saying then. General Sir Roland Walker has warned against a range of threats in what he called an increasingly volatile world. But he said war was not inevitable and the army had just enough time, JIT as always, to prepare itself to avoid conflict. Central to this was doubling the army's fighting power by, here it is, 2027 and tripling it by 2030, he said. Remember, it's these two key dates that I've been talking about since 2020. He said it doesn't matter how it ends. I think Russia will emerge from it probably weaker objectively or absolutely, but still very, very dangerous and wanting some form of retribution for what we have done to help it. So he's talking about the UK to help Ukraine. I don't necessarily agree with that statement. I don't necessarily think Russia will emerge weaker. And the reason I think that is because you've now seen Russia, and there's a new alliance, which I'll talk about if it fits on tomorrow's Walk and Talk, where we talk about lots of different things. There's a new alliance that Russia's just formed. And this isn't one I've talked about before. This is another alliance that's just happened. And this one's a powerful alliance. It's a powerful military alliance. And they are in the final agreement of doing a similar to NATO, Article 5, etc. So there is a lot actually going on. There's a lot of movement here. He also warns that China was intent on retaking Taiwan and Iran was likely to pursue nuclear weapons. Well, they've already said that Iran is just a week away from having nuclear weapons. So he's talking as well about how Britain might have to fight with China if they retake Taiwan. Why are we getting involved in that? Again, no idea. We need to kind of mind our own business over certain things. We seem to be getting involved in every little fight taking place. He urged the British Army to modernize quickly, including focusing on technology like AI and firepower rather than numbers. Eventually, his ambition is for the army to be able to destroy an enemy 3 times its own size. Interesting, because that goes against current military tactics, where you always use a bigger force to overcome a smaller force. But that's probably where the AI is going to come in. There are 75,000 members of the UK's regular armed forces. That excludes Gurkhas and volunteers, according to the latest statistics, which was April 2024. Now, Sky News, again, it's the exact same article, except and again, it's always action shots to let you know what's coming. But they talked about the axis of upheaval, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. But there's a few of the bits they've added in here. He described how these countries are creating a relationship between each other. This is a military coalition sharing weapons and technologies, and how this could converge by 2027 to 2028. Well, we already know this is happening. This isn't a theory or anything now. We know that these 4 countries are moving into a military alliance. So it's not as if this is a secret that NATO's uncovered some big mystery here. It's all in the open. They put it out in their own press what they are doing. So I think the main concern, based on listening to all the speeches of the different military commanders and generals, I think their biggest concern is that these 4 powers will converge around 2027, 2028. That is what I'm getting from it, and why they're saying that we either need to build a big military across NATO and increase spending to 2.5% of GDP per country, or we take them out beforehand. That's like some of the other plans they were talking about. Do we just go in and take them out beforehand? And that would be interesting, because you know what that would lead to. What do they say? I don't know what about the weapons of World War IV, sticks and stones. This is why you get to the point by 2027, 28, this convergence may have reached some sort of mutual singularity, and your ability to deal with them in isolation, a specific crisis that can be managed by the rules-based system, I think is significantly diminished. Now, he said, I highlighted this word because I thought it was an interesting word, Now, I can't say I know Rowley personally, but I have worked with him in the military. He was a commander. So I know that he's an intelligent, very intelligent man. And he doesn't use words unless it means something. So I thought it was interesting that he said trigger a sympathetic detonation. So, and how this could affect the rest of the world. I thought that was quite an interesting thing he said. The general said he aims to double the ability of the army to fight and kill by 2027 and destroy an enemy 3 times the size by the end of the decade. General Walker said the key, given the lack of time to procure new large weapon systems, was to innovate and adapt using autonomous weapons, AI, and other forms of new technology to make soldiers more effective killers. Not mincing his word at all, but you've got to bear in mind where this was taking place. It was at a land warfare conference. Sky News went on with another article then, and they said problems in the British military are much worse than we thought. This was the new defense secretary. He said these are really serious times with rapidly increasing global threats, and said he wanted to avoid age-old tactics by the Army, Navy, and Air Force over budgets. Again, we've got another action shot. The comments come as Ukraine's former military chief warned that Britain and other democracies need to wake up. Again, you keep seeing this key word because it's being programmed into everything. So you'll see this, and this is usually what will happen as well just before the conflict starts. You'll see this, wake up. I mean, it can't be more obvious. And consider how to protect themselves from another world war, a level of readiness in red that would require all of society, not just the military, to be prepared. And this was you remember we talked about this previously. It was Operation Mobilize. You can look this up. This has been in effect for at least a year, if not 2 years now. What is Operation Mobilize? It is mobilizing the regular armed forces, the reservists, and then the civilians. Yes, it is the civilians. It's a 3-pronged approach. That is Operation Mobilize. You can look it up, because last time people didn't even believe me when I told them this is the 3-prong. I said, no, it's not. It's just the regulars. It's not. There is all 3, including civilians. This is what the guy has said. Evil is here and it has come to kill. Noting these are really serious times with rapidly increasing global threats, the Defense Secretary said he wanted to evade age-old tactics by these groups, Navy, Air Force, Army. We must be fit to fight, not fight among ourselves, he said. He also revealed after 2 weeks of being in government, we now also see that these problems are much worse than we thought. I keep seeing all these articles as well, which are a little bit worrying when I read them. Military intervention in Ukraine is now essential. So we've got certain people who are very heavy warmongers. They want to send troops in. And you can see this man wrote an article. He said that peace is not an option. Putin there'll never be a peace deal, etc. We need to send in the troops. Only military intervention will secure peace. In other words, peace through war and, nuking them and all this other stuff. Obviously, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He said, knowing this, it's shocking that NATO members call for negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. He doesn't believe in this, and you've seen a lot of these people writing all of this now. It is worrying to see that they are saying this stuff and influencing the public. Another thing that's just happened, 14 new F-16 fighter jets from the US have just landed in Slovakia. So these have arrived now, and these will significantly contribute to the increase of defense spending of the country, they've said. The rest of the jets will be delivered in 2 years. And this is because, and I did not know this, I was amazed when I heard this. Last year, the government of this country gave its fleet of jets to Ukraine. So they didn't have any of their own, it says, because they didn't have their own aircraft. They had to get safety and security from Poland, Czech Republic, and also Hungary in order to guard the Slovakian airspace. The new Prime Minister came in, Robert Fico. I hope I pronounced it right this time. Fico. I got blasted in the comments last time. People are like, that's not how you pronounce it. Anyway, he's come in and said that he's basically said that this was an illegal act, that the government gave away all the air defense. He's also condemned the donation of the jets, and he's going to sue. Couple other stories as we end then. China makes nuclear weapons demands to the US and allies. Again, that's not actually what happened. I read the whole story here, and they haven't made demands. They have made suggestions around the nuclear pact. So the story says China's demanded that the US make commitments on nuclear weapons. That's a very misleading statement. What they've actually said is they published these two working papers in relation to the no first use of nuclear weapons policy. So in other words, these different countries agree that they will not use nuclear weapons, even in warfare. So this is the agreement. And China advocated a no first use of nuclear weapons initiative in the working paper and called on the rest of the P5 to follow its step. The P5 is your nuclear powers, UK, US, France, even Pakistan's in amongst that, under any circumstances. So this is what it's also about. That they sort of go into a lot of detail, saying that they also have a nuclear arsenal. It's for self-defense, not for threatening others. Again, do you believe that? I'm not so sure. Anyone who's got nuclear weapons obviously has them for a reason. Whether it's attack or defense, they are there for a reason. And then we can see all the warhead inventory here with Russia and the US. And the red is deployed, so these are active at the moment. So it's neck and neck. But it also shows the amount that are stored. So France has a lot deployed, as does the United Kingdom. But apart from that, they are your main ones. The US Defense Department said in its report on China's military power last year that if a conventional military defeat in Taiwan gravely threatened the ruling CCP, Beijing would probably consider using nuclear weapons to restore deterrence. Again, that is what the US Defense Department is saying. I want to cover both sides of the story. China views the self-ruled Taiwan as a breakaway province, so they don't consider it the same way the US does. Now, very quickly, if you haven't seen that the Secret Service Director has resigned, if you haven't seen this is Marjorie Taylor Greene. She absolutely destroys. You've got to watch this video if you haven't seen it. I'll just show you a little clip here.
People there knew that there was a danger. They knew there was a threat to President Trump, and it was allowed to happen. Was there a stand-down order, Ms. Cheadle? Was there a conspiracy to kill President Trump?
Absolutely not.
Then how did this happen? And why are you still sitting here not turning in your letter of resignation?
So that's you should definitely catch up on that. It's pretty brutal when you watch that. But there's still a lot of questions that remain to be answered. And for some reason, this lady didn't even have any of the documentation. She's on not trial. What do you call it? It's not trial. Well, let's just call it a trial. She's on trial there, and she hasn't got any of the documentation. She won't answer any of the questions. It's really weird if you actually watch the whole thing, which I've been following. Honestly, I've hardly slept. There's so much going on. I'm like trying to watch the land warfare conference, trying to watch this, trying to watch everything, trying to read all the news. My desk is completely covered in all the stories. So much going on at the moment. There really is. And I'm going to catch you up again tomorrow. The walk and talk will be an interesting one. We got some big stuff going on. So apart from that, take care. God bless. I'll catch up with you tomorrow.